This is pretty wild. Karen has left the stream. I think they had to reboot her last time to get her working, so she may be back in just a minute. No, she will be back in just a minute. So we've got a lot of questions that were posted earlier that we're going to be going through, and I don't want to like spoil all my thoughts while Karen's not here to hear them. But my idea here is Karen and I are going to go through our Q&A and basically just give you an opportunity to ask any questions you want to about us or monsters or whatever. We're not really limiting anything. I mean, I think in general, the idea is a lot of us are trapped at home right now, and this might be a fun way to sort of interact with our listeners, which is great. And we appreciate you being a part of the Facebook group and listening to the show. It's wonderful. So I saw Terry Erickson's comment that Karen's a robot, and that's why she had to be rebooted. Secret's out. So I'm going to what is a watch party? Watch this. Oh, I guess you guys can click on start a watch party. I'm not really sure how that technology works. I'm afraid to mess with it while I'm streaming everything. Hey, we have sound. Yay!
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yay!
I hope
Hallelujah.
Did rebooting fix it again? It's like it's the IT crowd is the solution for everything.
Yeah, that is the truth. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's solved everything this time.
That's funny. Yeah, everybody's talking about how they've got nowhere to be. Okay, well, this is good. So, all right. So now just keep in mind the overeating and not exercising adds 10 pounds to me. So that's
I think my question is, are you wearing pants?
I am, as far as you know. So that's important. So we have
the benefit of the audience and me as well.
Yeah. You're still used to hearing my voice without my face, and many of you will probably default back to that as soon as this is over.
This is for radio and podcasting.
Exactly. I am as nature intended. So
all I'm seeing here is Facebook user.
Yeah,
I don't know
I'm keeping an eye.
Saying all this crap about me being a robot.
No, it's kind of neat. Like
much better if I was.
It would. I certainly would appreciate the occasional defrag and reboot myself.
I could do with that too. Yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to figure out how to make this. So I'm seeing. I see comments, but I don't see. They're kind of like
no names. So you know.
Yeah, there's no names here, but on Facebook I'm watching it also. But then the comments are kind of like disappearing. So it's like a little waterfall. I can only see like 4 of them. It's really peculiar.
I can scroll up and down, but
oh, I see.
It's just chatter. It's not questions at this point.
So. I got you. Well, that's all right. So if we don't name you, it's because the software we're using is turning everybody into Facebook user.
Well, yeah, we can name them as Facebook user 1, Facebook
exactly.
user 2.
Oh, we have one very chatty person called Facebook user. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
someone who's typing a
this person's obsessive. This is scary. All right, let's. So I kind of to reiterate our start because Karen's back now. I was just saying that this is
what were you saying about me?
This is a test. We're giving this a shot. A lot of people are stuck at home right now and could use some entertainment,
including
or this. So we thought it would be a fun idea to try. I mean, obviously, Karen and I get to do this live every time, and then we edit it down to something that hopefully you enjoy. And
that's why it's much more polished than this.
It's polished. It's edifying and educational. And oh, I caught it too. No, it's
the Rona.
I'm trying to avoid talk about that. Right.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our. Thank you very much again, Karen, for putting together our coronavirus episode. I mean, that would not have happened.
Well, thank you to Maddie Love for suggesting Vincent Racaniello.
Yes.
He's got a name that's as difficult as my last name to pronounce.
As I'm married to someone who's half Italian and half Latvian, so and that's really the end of that story. There's really nothing else. It gives me no special powers, no special anything. So but she's a very special woman.
But the kids, yes, yeah.
Yeah, but the kids.
The COVID episode was awesome. Yeah, we've had a lot of good feedback about that episode, and it was just really good to be able to put something out with some science-based information because there's so much crap out there, so much, so many myths and misconceptions out there, and still. So yeah, it's been good feedback about that.
Yeah, it's been great. And then our next episode's about Screaming Skulls,
Yes.
which if you want to go ahead and read ahead, Karen wrote a story about Screaming Skulls, a fiction. She's doing a lot of fiction that I'm really impressed by.
And this is some downtime in between editing and indexing of other books. So I'm actually doing something I enjoy. So I'm wanting to put together a compilation of short stories, and that's why I'm putting out so many in quick succession.
They remind me very much of, and I've said this in a couple of comments to you, but they remind me very much of like EC Comics kind of stories. Some of them have a twist, and
yeah,
but go ahead.
Really inspired by Roald Dahl. There used to be a show.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of what it was called there. Tales of the Unexpected. It's
it sure was. Yeah.
At 2 a.m. or something. Really weird, creepy theme.
I think I have all those. Yeah.
And inspired by Guy de Maupassant, and just a bunch of short story writers, because no one's really writing short stories anymore, and I think it's just an underrated genre. So
yes. Well, I imagine most of our listeners do too. I mean, it's
yes. I hope so. And it's fun to write about historical topics as well.
Oh, by the way, we are not, at least I am not operating in full sobriety. This has some tequila in it, just FYI.
I have a glass of wine, but I'm still too sober.
Yeah. So I don't want to pretend that, even though it says Dasani is not normally orange, and it's not normally full of liquor. So yeah.
So are you engaging in day drinking at the moment during this time?
What time is it? Isn't it evening? It's nighttime now, isn't it? It's after 9. Yes, 9:10.
In general.
No.
Not for the purposes of the public.
No. I don't get to do any day drinking, sadly. I wish I did. That'd be fun. Just kind of keep a light buzz going. But there's
had a few thoughts go through my head at various times.
Yeah, no. And I did one time try to mow after having some tequila, and I can't recommend.
Oh.
So not in the summertime in Georgia.
Sounds dangerous.
It's a dumb idea. So it was a tequila inspired idea. So enough of that.
I did not expect Blake to look like Archie from Warehouse 13.
Yeah, me either. This is I apologize to everyone who had a different idea of what I look like. That's me too.
Well, they've seen pictures online before. I think.
Yeah. So I shaved my head today, and then ended up like shaving a big piece of it off, so I've got.
Ouch.
This I have no hair, but I also have like a big open wound right now, so I need to. It was bad. I was starting to look like a mountain man, so I trimmed everything down because I knew we'd be on camera today.
You live in the mountains, or near enough?
We're on the edge of the North Georgia mountains. We are. So I guess we should take a few questions here. Yeah. Let's get this show started.
Cool.
So
I don't know. You said it already, but that we posted on Facebook and said that we'd be doing this show, and just tried to source questions from the people and our listeners and Facebook members.
Are we in the Maritimes? I am not. We're in the end times. That's very different. I'm not sure what the Maritimes are actually. That might not have been even addressed to us, by the way.
That's probably not. Yeah, I think.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Facebook user, everybody's Facebook user to us right now. Sorry about that, but the green screen does mean that you can drop Godzilla into my backdrop and post. I'm hoping to make use of that at some point. That was actually purchased. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. I used Patreon money to buy this green screen with the intent that at some point, Karen and I will start doing more video work. Sorry.
Yeah, we'd like to. Yeah, this is a good start anyway.
Woohoo! Okay, James just joined us, which is perfect timing because our first question comes from James.
James Nealand.
James Nealand, who is a friend of the show. He has been doing. They're basically. I mean, Karen set up the Monster Talk Facebook group. James has been helping out tremendously with administering it and keeping the spirit of open, friendly discussion alive, which we really appreciate.
And posting.
Oh, am I choppy? Someone says I've got Georgia internet. Oh no. So what I have is I have really good internet, and then 4 people upstairs streaming different videos. That's what's really happening.
Right. Yeah.
So. But James asks, do you ever find it difficult to separate the skeptic in you from the wanna believer, given that you both have a love of the macabre, the spooky, the weird, the wondrous, do you often find yourself wishing that some legends, some cryptids were true? Which is a great question.
Yeah.
Karen?
Well, I think I've been what some might call a professional skeptic for so long that I think it's my default thinking to always question and analyze everything, but to also keep an open mind. So I think that I really do default to being a skeptic. It doesn't mean that I don't have a love for a lot of these stories. I think we've talked about this a lot over the years about loving the folklore and the stories. And so it would certainly be fun if some of these stories would be true. And I guess we'll get into that a bit later too, some of the other questions. But I think I'm skeptic foremost, but also a fan of all of the folkloric aspects. How about you?
Well, I know I've talked a little bit about it on the show that I come from a background where I was a very religious person and believed in a lot of the supernatural, and then had some very spooky, haunting like experiences that was really scary. And learning about sleep paralysis and going down that road of trying to find out more about logical fallacies and the sort of the logician side of skepticism, as well as the mystery investigation side, has made me become more of a default skeptic. But I still love spooky stuff, and I still want this stuff to be true. I like to go in and to an investigation with the let's assume anything's possible and just look at the answers. Like let's examine things and figure out what's going on. But I do still, I understand that longing for the numinous. I understand that longing that you want there to be more than this, right? You want there to be more to the universe than just science and materialism. And, and when recently my grandfather passed away, he was 104, obviously terrible skateboarding accident. But
this time fatal.
But he, when you lose a loved one, it's easy to really want them to keep going. And what, as a materialist, I sort of take the approach of, I want them to keep going. I don't expect that they are, but as there's someone important to me, I'll always carry them with me. So
I think we've spoken before about grief hallucinations. Some people call them bereavement hallucinations, and Oliver Sacks has written about them a lot too. And I've heard all different kinds of statistics that 50% to 80% of people who lose a loved one experience some kind of phenomena which makes them think that they're still around. They might smell their perfume or catch a glance of them out of the corner of their eye. They might think that they see them somewhere, or that they hear their voice. So I think this is a really common human experience to experience these kinds of things, and also to hope that there is some kind of afterlife. And we should do some shows on reincarnation too, I think.
That's a really interesting topic. So
it is.
Now we've got. I'm going to hop over to a Facebook user who asks, "I've only been listening for a couple of years, but how did you guys meet and start this awesome podcast?"
Well, we met 2008, and that was at Dragon Con.
It was.
And we just, I think, had lunch together with, was it with James Randi and a bunch of other skeptics?
It was a big old skeptic table.
Yeah, just got talking about
I think we actually started talking about Jeff the Talking Mongoose at that meeting, which was it's like, that's such an obscure monster. I was so impressed that you knew about it. So
Well, and ever since then we've shared stories of obscure monsters, and that's
we'll always have that, right?
But I see someone's also asked us how the apocalypse is treating us.
Oh, so far so good. I don't know how it is there.
Well, I mean, we had to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go on a search for toilet paper, and still didn't find any.
When I got married, I told my wife that I wanted to have a bidet in the house, and it's 20 years later. Yes, I'm using an old sock.
That was an inevitable question. Something to do with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I guess.
No, it is a clean sock, by the way. I've tried many pieces of equipment for managing pop filters and sound dampening. It turns out that one of my Sunday socks, which I don't use for church anymore, is perfect for this.
So, what did you use it for before?
Yeah, what is? I have another. There's a pair of them. So yeah, that's really funny. So I lost my train of thought. How's
The
the apocalypse
the
treating me?
apocalypse.
Yeah. So yeah, the apocalypse. Yeah. No.
Got a
Oh my God.
screaming cat at me here.
I don't want to be. I shouldn't be touching my face, by the way. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Um,
Yeah, you
really
should.
well, honestly, really
Look,
well. We're
wash your
doing
hand.
really well. I'm delighted. I'm turning this ringer on thing off thing. But my wife's been cooking. My kids have been incredibly well behaved. Everybody's adapted. It's been 1 week, and we've taken to homeschooling like it was pro. I mean, like they knew exactly what to do. It's been great. I can't be prouder. I'm so happy with everybody here at Team Smith's, Monster Talk Central. It's been really great.
Well, you haven't got a 4-year-old.
I am fortunate to not.
He's climbing the walls.
Oh, I mean, no, we know we're
school.
lucky. Can you imagine? If you like, we have twins that we decided to stop at 2 and got 3, and I remember how many times we had to go get diapers every week. So we live out in the suburbs. The diaper laundry service was on a choice. Just anyway, I pity. I know everybody has different circumstances, but this is a rough time, and that's why we're glad to be able to hopefully distract you and entertain you for a few minutes. Matt Metcalf Armstrong asks, was there a particular paranormal or monster story that set you on your current paths? Understanding that each of you probably had a different one. Okay.
Well, for me, I think I just had a love of. My first interest was in ghosts, so I was writing stories about ghosts from the age of 5. I think I just heard some local kids talking about ghosts that they'd seen, and so I think that they were things they were picking up from television or from friends and family, that kind of thing. So I was just really fascinated by the idea of ghosts, and just kept researching that. I think we've talked a lot before about Usborne books or Usborne books.
Yes.
And how they really inspired a lot of our listeners. And so I had all of those books. I stole them from my brother, and he's a bit older than me and had a collection of books on ghosts. And I was just fascinated by it all. That was how many parts were there to that question?
Just the one. What was there a particular monster story that set you on your paths? Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about this a lot before, about stories like Jeff the Talking Mongoose, like Lord Dufferin and the urban legend associated with him, like Borley Rectory, and gosh, what other stories? I mean, there are just so many of them that you and I, Screaming Skulls as well, had both heard of and read about.
Yeah.
And we're familiar with, and I think we've just grown up with a love of those stories, and tried to turn it into a job, or at least an interest.
Don't make me spit. Yeah, that's the Usborne book in particular. The one for the unexplained, or it might have been the one for ghosts, which I think that they bound like 2 together. I've
got a few of them here, but it's sort of inaccessible.
And they just re-released them last year, I think. They did, which was very impressive.
With a forward by, was it Reese Shearsmith, the guy from League of Gentlemen and the various comedy shows? He wrote a forward. He spoke about how that had influenced him. So it seems like it's influenced a lot of people.
A lot of people. Yep.
Were successful, not us.
Well, I guess I feel like we're pretty successful in some ways, but it'd be great if we could do this full time, that'd be wonderful. But I do enjoy my day job. And yeah, enough about finances, but we appreciate our Patreon support very much. Very much.
Yeah, we do.
For myself, I was an early Bigfoot adopter. So I think in the first grade, when I got introduced to the library, I was first of all amazed that the school had its own library. That was a really big deal. And then I was also impressed because you get there in the 0 section, you find all the paranormal ghost books, Bigfoot books. And I tore through that
Me too.
a lot. Yeah. So just a big fan of monsters in general. But Bigfoot was really probably my gateway drug. Although I read the Jeff story really early on and didn't realize how old or rather how young I was, not rather how long ago it was. Yeah. So that was because I kept trying to find the story that introduced me, and what I remembered about the story was it wasn't long, and then at the end it talked about a new person moving into the farm and shooting a mysterious mongoose-like animal, and it ends with the question, was it Jeff? And that's in the Usborne book. That's the exact text of the Usborne book. It matched perfectly. So
yeah. And so Facebook user number 85, I don't know who it is, said the Folklore podcast with Mark Norman has an episode.
I meant to say that. Yes, exactly. They have an entire episode about with the. If I remember correctly, it's a woman who had helped to bring the book back. It was really
editor. I can't remember her name, but yeah, she just realized that there was a lot of demand for the book still, and I mean, people
were being schooled on the sections. Yeah.
Well, my sons are already into them. Just even at 4, he likes to flick through and look at the pictures, and wants me to tell him what the stories are about. And so it's just new generations are getting interested in this too. But they are really famous stories, historical stories, and that have just been passed on for generations now, and they're just still very riveting.
Yes. Deidre Harrington asks, for what cryptid do you think there's enough evidence that you may believe it to be a real creature, though not a barred owl? Like it really, is there really such a cryptid? And they pointed out that like at one point early in the show, Darren Naish came on and said that he thought maybe Orang Pendek was real. I think his thinking there may have changed, but is there any cryptid you think might be real?
Well, I think we want to do a show on the thylacine. Because we did one some time ago, didn't we? But
we did one. It was conjunctive
years ago.
That's not real. In conjunction with the movie they did about the thylacine, there was the hunter. I think it had Willem Dafoe as a guy trying to hunt down the thylacine. So we talked about it before, but yeah, that's a good.
I think we should revisit it because there are a couple of cryptozoologists, and I think even a scientist or two who believe that there have been sightings, and other people who are trying to clone them as well. So I'm not saying that necessarily that means the thylacine is real or could be real, but I think it's another animal that we should revisit because there's a lot of discussion about it right now. I think there was an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, and he had an Australian guy on who claims that he's hunting the thylacine and thinks he's seen them.
I am also hunting the thylacine, Karen. So far, nothing.
Perhaps we are all hunting the thylacine.
I can only hunt it in my backyard because of social distancing.
So Tasmanian tiger, as someone said, yes, indeed. The Tasmanian
exactly.
Tiger. Yeah. And not the one from the Chuck Jones cartoons.
No, I'm old enough to remember when this weird animal called the megamouth shark was found in the 1970s, and they covered it in National Geographic. And my grandfather used to get National Geographic, and we would get the hand-me-downs. And it was found by accident. It ate a boat anchor. It's a pretty good sized shark. It ate the anchor on a boat. And they, no bait, it just ate the anchor. But so my point is that the ocean is full of things we don't know about. And I know we're exploring it more, but my best guess is that there's probably some really interesting sea life out there that we haven't found yet. I don't think we're going to find a sea serpent in the classic sense. I think there's a lot of cultural things going on to like make people misunderstand. One of my favorite things is the people who have hypothesized that many of the strange sea serpents seen are possibly whale penises. That's perfect. That amuses me. I remember I was one of those people who would read a lot of nature books and have lots of trivia, and knowing that like a whale penis could be like 6 feet tall and 3 feet around at the base. I was like, that's great trivia. So there's nothing for my ego, but it really is great trivia.
Great trivia for Facebook Live.
Yeah, there you go. So apparently the answer, for people who are wondering, 2/3 of a bottle before I start talking about whale penises. That was for anybody who had bets.
Of orange juice, yeah. Fanta. Sun-kissed.
Oh my gosh. So let's see.
But you were talking about sharks, and I've been wanting to do an episode on the Greenland shark. Do you remember
Oh
hearing that
yeah,
story? So that goes back a couple of months ago, but there was this ancient-looking shark. To see pictures of it, it looks medieval, if you could say that about a shark. But there are claims that it's about 512 years old, that particular
they're
type
quite
of
old. What I
shark.
found more just the fact that they're ancient and large is really interesting. The fact that most of them around Greenland have had their eyeballs eaten out by parasites and still live full long lives, that is freaky. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh. Like you see these huge weird sharks with worms crawling out of their eyes. It is
Yeah, that's reminding me of a story I've seen. I think James posted it on Facebook about a mummified looking snake. There's some kind of parasite that's attacking snakes in California, and Google it. It's not a very pleasant image, though. It's if you're one of those people affected by patterns, it's very unpleasant to see. But
Yeah.
its face is swollen, and its eyes are. I think it's gone blind, so its eyes are kind of glassy looking, and yeah, it just looks very strange. So
Wow.
they're worried that that's going to start spreading now too.
I personally care, but I that's the kind of thing my dad would be like, good, so,
Oh,
man,
yeah, my mother.
he hates snakes.
Yeah, well,
Let's see.
coming from Australia, it's a different perspective.
Greg Asdorian, hey Greg, asks, how much overlap do you see between the myths and cryptids of different culture similarities? What do you think it says about the shared human fears and experiences? That's a good question.
Yeah, I think with a lot of the topics that we've treated, we've found, whether it's Bigfoot or whether it's witches, it seems like there are examples of these creatures and types of people across cultures with different variants and that seem to be influenced by culture and time as well. So yeah, I think that it does seem to be a shared human experience, and these are the kinds of stories that we're told and we tell to our children, and yeah, I think they do seem to be universal, if we can say that.
There's in folklore as a study, there's this whole concept of motifs where you have recurring, it's kind of like tropes in fiction, but you have recurring elements over and over again. And when it's monster related, I keep thinking especially of the wild man, the green man, these nature creatures. There's the
and Yowie and
so
snowman.
And I think what I've recently become very aware of and very concerned about is like how many of these are important cultural story artifacts. Let's call them that. They're part of these individual cultures, and as Western culture sort of comes into the area, cryptozoology says, well, that's your story, but there's really an animal behind this. And it makes me very concerned about like again and again and again, cryptozoology relies on co-opting folklore into the basis of evidence-based research. And so I just worry that in some sense, cryptozoology has become a way of sort of crushing out myth and replacing it with kind of almost a different myth, when an animal-based myth, but still looking for like a real animal where maybe there's never anything. I don't know. I'm still working on these thoughts.
And I can see someone said, great question. I wonder if that's the author of the question.
Let's see. Can't tell. Sorry. Well, it must be his Facebook user. So let's see. What else have we got? Garrett Ernst Erickson asks, if you could choose one cryptid to be 100% real, what would it be and why?
Oh, gee. That's really hard to answer because I think ghosts, it would be fun if ghosts existed, but I'm not sure if I'd want most cryptids to exist. I think it'd be pretty scary if Bigfoot existed. Yeah. And these giants of the ocean and other creatures that we've talked about. I think a lot of them would be pretty frightening and dangerous. But I don't know. I mean, I still go back to Jeff the Talking Mongoose. I think that had he been real, that would have been a really fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm going to go with the succubus, and I'm not going to explain why.
Well, self-explanatory, hey?
One would hope. Oh, how would you go about gaining evidence for such a creature? Well, let me tell you in great detail.
I think anecdotal evidence is enough. We can just ask Anna Nicole Smith, or now she's be one herself.
Let's see. I copied that one twice, so that was not smart. Okay, let's see. Kevin O'Malley asks, what do you consider to be the longest running monster myth in modern times? So that's kind of an academic question, isn't it? What monster has been around the longest? And I assume he's talking about cryptids here, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've looked at much more than just cryptids over the years.
Yeah, I'm going to have
vampires and witches.
Vampires, yeah, but ghosts have been around since ancient Greece. I mean, like one of the earliest ghost stories we have is of, I believe it's the one that has the rattling chains. It's been a while since I looked at it, but it's basically a ghost is keeping someone up at night, scaring people, and they go to find out why it didn't get a good burial, so they have to give it a proper burial, and that lays the ghost to rest. And that, which, if you think about most ghost stories, they're either ghost scares person away or ghost investigator has to figure out how to lay the ghost to rest. And this is like, that's ancient Greece. That's been around a long time.
Yep. So I don't know about cryptids and monsters, though. I mean, how far back do sea creatures like Loch Ness Monster go? And I guess that's much more recent. But
yeah, that's pretty recent. But you get like Leviathan from the Bible. In ancient Babylon, dragons, they have dragons, the Tiamat. I mean, obviously some of these are gods that we now think of as monsters, but Gilgamesh had a wild man. That's true. Was it Enkidu? I think, if I remember correctly. My memory is not what it used to be because I'm old. So I'm not sure it's actually that I'm old. I think it's maybe just having kids around the house all the time. Like they wear down your concentration.
Oh, absolutely. Even just one of them.
So see, Michael Allison.
Someone said I should drink every time Blake says a pun.
Well, I haven't made many puns, so I hope I'm okay.
I don't think you've made any tonight. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with you. I think you're. Is it this Armageddon? It's getting to you.
Okay, let's talk about puns.
Yeah, let's not.
I'm not saying let's pun. Let's talk about puns, though. So the more I know, here's some behind the scenes. You see me, I'm peeling the curtain back. Behind the scenes, the more I know
back so far that we can see you're not wearing pants.
Not quite that far. But the more I know about a topic, and the more likely I am to make puns. Like the less I know, and the more I'm in active learning mode.
Oh, okay. So when you feel comfortable with a topic, you feel more.
Yeah, right. So if we're talking about a monster I know a lot about, it could get really bad if I'm not careful, because I think of them all the time. But
I don't know. I mean, I've done interviews with you where you've gone into uncharted territory, and you've been pretty quick to make puns.
Yeah, I think it's the more I think about my own personal assessment, the more I'm wondering maybe I'm wrong. But I think like right now I'm trying to watch the Facebook feed and the question and this, so I don't feel like I have as many free cycles in a computer sense to like work on puns. But yeah, something like that. So
look, the night is still young. We've still got 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I'm also, I mean, like if you ask me, could you make a pun about topic X? Yes, yeah, but now I'm like, I am a Thomas Pynchon fan.
I think you're suffering performance anxiety.
Well, that could be, yes. This has never happened to me before. But I assure you that normally I'm hard and fast with the puns. So, yeah.
Punning for your pleasure.
Not really fast. When I say fast, what I mean is vigorous with the puns. Oh my gosh. So someone asked about Thomas Pynchon. I'm a big fan of The Crying of Lot 49. So the one with the Tristero. I really like that book a lot. Do a pun with Enkidu. You know, when I think of Enkidu, I think of Jimmy Durante and like Inka Dinka Doo. He has that song, and I'm sure that's not what he's trying to just sort of say.
No, maybe it'll come to you as we keep
yeah, but Enkidu,
But
like some people use him like as sort of he's a prototypical hairy man creature, you know. So he is interesting.
Like yourself.
Yeah, well, there is that. So everywhere but the top of my head. God, I'm glad we're not.
Nature is cruel.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to do shots or drink every time you make a pun, because I would.
Well, you know, speaking of being
drunk.
Well, my daughter likes cosplay, and she has a bunch of different wigs and stuff. And so as a joke, I grabbed one of her like rainbow colored wigs and put it on. I was going to go talk to her. And as I was walking to her room, I passed the restroom, I passed the bathroom, and I saw myself in the mirror. I was like, oh, I look pretty good with blue and green hair. I was like, just wear that, you know? So.
Well, next time we do this, you can wear a wig.
Yeah. Anyway, the point of all that was that the colored hair was my Enkidu. Okay.
Oh, yeah. See, there's some eye rolls for
so, yeah, right. So Michael Allison, do you think Munster folklore still has a mainly cautionary function, or has that changed with old fears being replaced with new ones? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, because I think a lot of paranormal claims historically have been because we just didn't understand what was really going on. You know, is it some witch in the village that is killing all the livestock, or is it some disease? So I do think that with science and our increased awareness and understanding, just the general public when it comes to science, I think we're less prone to a lot of claims. But at the same time, I do think that they're still extremely prevalent. I guess they're just changing, you know, that it's, I mean, what would you say about that?
It's interesting because I'm thinking about old folklore, like versus the new. So for example, let's talk about if you look at water horses or that sort of monster in the water as a cautionary tale of stay away from the water, it's dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you compare that with modern folklore, like like Slender Man didn't really start as folklore, but it sort of developed one.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't know. Even I'm thinking about like urban legends. These are modern folklore, and a lot of them are around things like don't go off with strangers and don't treat your girlfriend badly, or she may become a monster, or that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of
legends and
I think folk. I mean, I think a lot of it still has a cautionary portion to it, and you know, and that's some of that is around, hey, be careful, this could kill you, and of course, there's some of it is around cautionary. Hey, these are the morals of our society at this current state. If you disobey these values, bad things will happen to you. So the hook-handed dates, you know, that's that kind of thing. Yeah. So
I think, yeah, and we've been talking a lot more about human monsters or real monsters. I mean, we just did the show on the coronavirus as well, and we've done a show on Adolf Hitler, and we did the show with David Perlmutter, just talking about man as monster or humans as monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think there's still that kind of element there. You know, they're extreme stories, but there's certainly still cautionary tales. You know, about not trusting people, being careful about your health. You know, just and certainly a lot of cautionary tales still for children. I mean, you know, even right now we're trying to explain to a 4-year-old why we can't go to school and why we can't go to the shops, why we can't go to the playground, why he can't see his friends. And, you know, we're having to talk about this sickness, you know, which is kind of being demonized for him. You know, he fell over a couple of days ago and was really scared because he hurt his knee and he thought he had germs in his knee and some kind of sickness of his knee. So, you know, it's very difficult for children to comprehend things like this.
It is. I think if we look at the amount of nonsense that's being spread right now around the current virus issues, you can see that the human tendency to create narrative is always going to be there, right? And now a lot of times it will be to create narrative that's entirely fictional. And what I hope we're doing with our show is giving people some of the tools they need to sort of evaluate what's real and what's not real. But I don't think, just based on the question, I don't think we're ever going to run out of these stories. Or the need
you're
to
going to turn political there for a minute. But
no. I'm just saying that I think no.
It's coming up in the
even on a
comments.
live stream. No. I really, one of the reasons I try to
your background screen turning blue.
the reason I try to steer away from politics and religion is because I think critical thinking about these topics is really important. And I think even though I have political values, I think that talking about them can drive a wedge into an audience and make it not want to stick around and listen or learn.
And shut down, for sure.
Yeah. And so I want to reach out to everybody, regardless of their politics. And so that's the reason I try to, if you want to see my politics, go to my Twitter feed. I'm not shy about it there, but here on this show, I typically just try to
a message on Facebook.
Yeah, or privately outside of the Monster Talk group. I'll be glad to talk about politics. But I like to think the show in general and the Facebook group in general are places where people can go and talk about monsters and critical thinking, and that
not derail the conversation.
Exactly.
Politics is coming to it occasionally. Sometimes it's unavoidable.
It is sometimes unavoidable. I was so delighted. My own uncle listened to an episode. He listened to the viral episode about Corona. And he didn't like the politics that we briefly discussed politics in there, but
very brief.
But he listened. You're right. It was a very tiny piece, but otherwise I was just excited about that. It was great.
Yeah. As you say, staying out of politics, sometimes you can reach more people and
sometimes. Yeah.
Otherwise they're going to shut down.
So Gary Williams says, could you rate the seemingly never-ending procession of real-life ghost investigation shows in descending order of awfulness? Which is the least worst you have seen and why? And which is the worst?
No, there's too many shows.
No, there's too many shows. They're terrible. And I guess if you're talking about just on TV shows, if I had to pick a worst one, that's really a hard call because like anything with Zach Bagans is pretty special.
Scooby-Doo.
Somebody just posted the Scooby-Doo joke from Joel McHale. That's a great joke. I wonder
if that's my husband.
I don't know, but it's a good joke. I would say I was appalled by a lot of the things that happened on Paranormal State. That was one of those shows that I kind of, how Jason Colavito watches Ancient Aliens and blogs about it. I felt the same way about Paranormal State. I wanted to just watch each episode, deconstruct it, and point out to people why it was wrong, because I was basically rage watching it. Oh, it was so painful.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many bad shows out. I don't know if you ever read a story, an article I wrote years ago for CFI about Fact or Faked.
Yes, but go ahead.
You had experiences with them too. That's right.
I did.
It's a Paranormal Fact or Fakes. So I wrote about basically how my husband, who used to do this kind of thing as well, investigating paranormal claims, how he was contacted by the team from the show for a video that he had that was on YouTube of a Ouija board and a group of people playing with the Ouija board and the planchette moving by itself. And of course, spoiler alert, but this was just all through strings and just magnets and things like that. And so anyway, they said, we would like to use your video for our show. And we thought, this is cool, to have this video being shown on there, and then their researchers can investigate this and see if it's there's truth behind it or if it's faked somehow. And so anyway, they started corresponding with my husband and saying, look, can you redo the video and can you make it a little bit more convincing? And so they wanted him to, obviously they knew that it was faked, but all along they were wanting him to edit it and to redo it and make it more pronounced. And I mean, not only that, but I know too, I'm friends with with Banachek, the magician, and he has been contacted by a number of reality TV shows over the years and asked to create effects and tricks and things. So,
yeah,
for shows purport to be real, even sometimes saying we want to scare our cast. So, you know, I mean, you and I have got a lot of behind the scenes stories about these TV shows, and know that a lot of them are bullshit.
They are, and I've also got friends who I know are smart people who I went to college with, not calling out any names, but who still came through, got their degree, and somehow still feel that the Ghost Hunters TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel was a science-based show, and I'm like, really?
Well, you know, they've actually become worse over the years, because my husband again has had a lot of experience with the cast, and I think originally some of them went into it thinking, hey, we're really going to go into this and do an investigation and do research, and we're going to take a scientific approach. And then just over time, they found that the audience was wanting bullshit. The audience was wanting, you know, just scares, and you know, they're not wanting the truth.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then there's Ghost Adventures as well. I think a few people are talking about Zach Bagans.
Come at me, Ghost Bro. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Have you seen Ghost Brothers? That's a newer show, I think, and someone.
There was one where they look like
worth a laugh.
I can't. There was one. It was like they looked like they had like a trailer behind them, like they were barbecue people, but that's not their thing. It was they just. It was like, yeah,
there was that.
It's
thing
entertainment.
recently.
It's on TV. It's got commercials. It's entertainment. That's bottom line. It's entertainment. And if you try to read more into it because it fits with your values, or you believe in ghosts or whatever, that's fine. But these shows are not proving anything. They're entertainment. That's all they are.
I think some of them are still good for a laugh, really. I mean,
someone
commented commented that their kids laugh at Zach, and so you heard too. I think you retweeted something about it. How there was an article recently about his book, Ghost Hunting for Dummies, which really says it all.
Yeah,
and how that was plagiarized. The book was full of plagiarism. I mean, I think Joe Nickell had been plagiarized.
Yeah, it's a strange story. I don't want to try to deconstruct it here, because I would need
that would be an episode, I think, in and of itself.
Yeah. Speaking of episodes, well, we've got one more question that's listed here, which is how did you start this podcast originally? So if you don't mind me fielding that one, I had become aware of podcasting through listening to Skepticality with, at the time, it was Derek and Swoopy. And they are right here in the Metro Atlanta area. And I think that must have been like 2007. And when I was listening to their show, I thought, well, I'm an IT guy. This seems really easy to like put together. And I started reading up about how it worked, but I didn't really have an idea for a show. And then we got into correspondence and sharing lots of information about our research, which, by the way, we spent like a year, I think, maybe just talking about, after we met at DragonCon. It was about a year.
It was probably about 8 or 9 months.
Yeah, it was a good chunk of time where I get really excited about what I'm researching about, whatever it is, and I love having people to share it with, and so
good to collaborate with people and get different perspectives. And
it totally is. It's difficult
to do it just by yourself.
Yeah, and so at some point I thought, I'd been wanting to do something with this, and I come from a background where I had been really interested in broadcasting. While I was in the Navy, I was trying to cross-rate into journalist. I was a machinist mate, but so I knew a little bit about journalism. I knew how to write, and I knew that I wanted to be a science communicator in some capacity. And we had sort of collaborated on email, and I was like, we should give this a shot, and so we did. And I think,
and I let you do it all.
Yeah. Well, really, we made it. It was, I mean, the way I put it together, it was, you just had to show up, right? And then we, bring your skills. But it was.
Nowadays, I think, we do a lot of research. If we have a guest on who has written a book, then we read the book.
I didn't mean, no, I just mean it's like I tried to. What I'm trying to say is, I think I was handling the production side. Yeah, but it's definitely. I couldn't do it alone. I love working with you, and it's just been a really good collaboration.
I love working with you. This has just been the best, and hope we
It-
continue doing it for another 10 years. And if people,
So, but by the way,
tune
you
in.
and I are not married, right? That's important. It's like
Not anymore.
we hardly ever see each other.
We don't
But
talk anymore.
but it's been a very good working relationship. I really have enjoyed
It
all
has.
this.
I don't think we've had any problems or hiccups or issues, and we get along really well. And
Yeah,
but you're a very easygoing guy, and
I'm pretty laid back.
yeah.
It's been very good. It's been very good.
Yeah,
But what I was going to say was we were about 5 or 6 episodes in when we got contacted by Daniel Loxton. And Daniel does the Junior Skeptic at Skeptic Magazine. And we had gotten, I think, 500 listeners. And Daniel said, "Hey, would you like to partner with Skeptic Magazine?" And it was like, what do we have to do? And basically all we had to do was partner with Skeptic Magazine. They took over the feed, like handling the production of putting it. I produced it and they pushed out the content.
Advertised it.
Yeah. And we went from 500 to 5,000 listeners in one episode, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm still very grateful for that. And I know we've separated, gone our way.
Time to move on.
Yeah, but it was a very useful relationship, and I really appreciated it. And I still consider Daniel to be a wonderful colleague. And if you love cryptozoology but want to know the facts, strongly recommend you pick up his book, Abominable Science, which he wrote with Don Prothero.
Yeah, we had him on a few times. Talking about Area 51 and psychology behind cryptozoologists and a whole bunch of things.
So I even after doing this for 10 years, I'm still not even remotely tired of it. I still enjoy doing the show. I still enjoy the research. So
yeah, I've said this so many times that when we first kickstarted this, I had a friend who said, "How many episodes can you do about Bigfoot?" You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name names, but I mean, we have treated so many things, and I think all the time you and I saying, "Oh, we've got to do an episode on this. Oh, we've got to talk about this." There's just so much stuff, and we do have a broad definition of monsters, but I mean, that's fair enough, and I think a lot of people have different perspectives on what a monster is, and we like just talking about the things that interest us.
That's fantastic. I want. Can we talk for a minute? Let's see. It's 5 minutes till
5 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes. So, one of the things we're working on is a new series, which I'm hoping we'll get to kick off pretty soon. I don't know. We're doing Debased on a True Story, which is, we know that movies that are based on a true story are never accurate. So we're going to actually pick a movie and it's supposedly based on a true story and actually look back and see what's the real story. So we've got several of we got a chunk of these lined up. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, are we going to use those for Monster Talk? And
yeah, the idea was to do an episode on some of this. So this will be more. It'll be interesting because it's got a cinematic part to it, but it also has some deep dive stuff. I'm really excited. Well, let's talk about The Changeling. That's the one I'm doing a lot of research on right now, which is a movie. It's a ghost movie. It's got George C. Scott. So this should be a fun little new format thing we're going to look into, because it'll let us talk about a movie, but at the same time, we'll talk about the ghost story behind it or the monster story behind it, and how the reality differentiates from what was presented on screen.
It's amazing how many movies are based on a true story.
Exactly.
And there's no fact there at all behind the scenes. It's just still interesting how they were influenced.
What do we think about BuzzFeed's show Unsolved? I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've heard it's pretty good, but I don't know.
I have not seen it. No.
Yeah.
The Exorcist. Yeah, that's definitely on the list. And
I'll tell you
the Blob on the list.
The Blob is not currently on the list, but one that you wouldn't expect that I do have on the list is The Hills Have Eyes, because even though you wouldn't think so, The Hills Have Eyes is based on the story of Sawney Bean, which is a family of cannibals that allegedly lived in a cave, and I don't want to spoil how that turns out, but that should be fun. Yeah. So we're getting close to our hour. What else do we have here? We got a lot of questions here.
Yeah, a lot of questions, but I think there was one person had just commented rather than questioning, and just saying that I think he was a teacher and that he was just really looking forward to this show. and that he's, people who are still having to work, during this time. I mean, we're really privileged to be able to self-isolate and be at home when there are doctors and nurses and people working in grocery stores who are working so hard for us now, and facing sickness. And so I think we just want to thank those people for everything that they're doing right now. And hopefully people who are working now will be able to tune into this. So what are we going to do with the show? We're going to put it up on YouTube.
Yeah, it'll be up on Facebook initially. And then what I'll do is I'll try to I'll extract the video and audio and see if I can post it on YouTube. Yeah, we can go for another hour. I wish I could go for another hour. I have to work.
Very kind. Well, we need to decide if we're going to do this weekly. I mean, I think during this time, it's nice to just, connect and catch up with people. And
it is. We'll figure that out because, but I hope this time was great. This time was perfect for me. So
this works for me too. I think who knows how long this is going to last. Initially, I was thinking weeks. Now it's seeming more like months, but we don't know.
It might be, but if it does turn out to be that long, as long as I can afford to pay my internet bill, I certainly have I really enjoyed this. It's nice to actually see you when we're talking. We don't normally use video when we're doing our interviews. So
I think it would be fun too if we could manage this to bring someone on the show too.
Yeah, we can handle up to 4 people on this stream software.
Okay,
so
daily. Well, thank you.
If someday if our Patreon money became substantial enough, that's certainly a dream Karen and I have. If we had enough money to pay all our bills, we could do this full time easily. That would be so cool. Many things I would research, so many things I would create if I had the free time and the money. But
certainly in the meantime, we have time on our hands outside of everything else we're doing. So I think we should try and do this weekly.
Yeah.
See where things go, and but possibly have some guests in future episodes. And
hey, Adam. Sorry. Anyway.
Getting distracted.
Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to actually coordinate these names. So I've got 2 things.
Someone said it better damn well clear up by Dragon Con.
That's Adam. Yeah.
Otherwise, Dragon Con is going to be a great place to pick it up.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, it's not just.
I've never been so sick as when I picked up the crud.
Yeah.
From Dragon Con.
Crud is the worst. That's true. It's terrible. So, all right. Well, I thank you for everybody who showed up tonight. We really appreciate it. And
there's one final question you should probably answer. I'm not a Scotch drinker. What's Bigfoot's favorite brand of Scotch?
Ooh, good Lord. I have no idea. That would probably be one I'd have to research.
You better do some intensive research this week.
I figured Bigfoot would be more of a
bourbon. I'm frozen now.
A bourbon guy, and that Nessie would be more of a Scotch person, so that's just my guess. So, yeah.
I've frozen here. I don't know if you can hear me anymore.
Oh, have you frozen, really?
I have, yeah.
Oh, no.
As far as I can see anyway. So.
Oh, no. I'm still moving and stuff here. I see you moving.
Well, I look like I've frozen. But anyway, it's after 8, so I guess we should sign out.
We'll go ahead and stop. Thank you, everybody who took time to come by.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to us drone on. And we'll try and do this next week too and come up with something
right
else
this
to talk
second,
about.
I think we could probably pull off next week at 9 without too much trouble. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Love you guys. Thank you for listening and tuning in and being here for us. And
be safe. Be careful.
Take care. We're worried about everyone and us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks a lot. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Now, last time I did this, when I clicked stop streaming,